Good morning, guys. I'm Blackie and welcome back to the channel. Okay, today in the Ground Pounder series we're going to get into cook sets, mess kits, that type deal. Now, understand that since man started traveling long distance, the question has been, how am I going to feed myself out there? And you, to a degree, don't need anything to cook and eat. Up till the 1940s or 50s, in Boy Scouts, for example, for you to become a first-class scout, part of it had a cooking component in those requirements, and the scoutmaster would give you 1 pound of raw meat and 1 pound of raw vegetable and 2 matches, and you had to cook up that meal to feed to someone else using just that. Well, once you think about it, what they would do is they'd build up a pretty good sized fire, get the ground going, get a good bed of coals, get a good supply going, and then they would take that vegetable and bury it in the ash and the coal, put the coal on top of it, basically baking it. And then the meat would either be laid directly on top of the coals, cowboy steak style, or put on a fork stick and roasted above it to create the meal. So you didn't need anything other than a fire to cook something like that. But we prefer convenience. We want to be able to carry something with us to help us cook our meals. Now with modern I'll just say modern foods that are available that are dehydrated, quick, instant heat, add water type meals, instant potatoes, rice, things like that are readily available, and we carry those quite often as a way for us to feed ourselves in the field. And there's complete box sets, everything from macaroni and cheese to all kinds of noodles and all kinds of stuff. Just add water is a very common thing. So we need some sort of container to either boil the water and then pour it into that bag and eat it directly out of the bag, or something to rehydrate and cook in. But what about when we're fishing and we're going to catch fish, or we're shooting small game, or we're foraging as well as part of our training going along? That's going to change our requirements a little bit. And so I'm going to display this in a layering system, starting with just what you could use in surplus and etc. for a personal kit. Okay, beginning with some sort of cooking vessel and talking about military surplus. Here in the U.S., the two most common military surpluses you're going to find is going to be a U.S. Army canteen cup set. Now this is the solid handle, not the butterfly. The handle, as you know, folds up, squeeze it, and then press down, put the little tabs in. And then I prefer the stove that comes off and mounts to the cup like that. This, as you can see by the blackening on this has been used quite a lot. Now this type of cup works really well for a single person to utilize it, where I can boil water for hot tea, hot coffee, hot stews, hot soup, whatever. I can immersion heat in this, and we'll talk about that later in actual cooking series. In immersion heating, I'm simply going to put a sealed up something in there and let the hot water heat it up, kind of like putting an MRE in there or some other canned device. I've set cans of soup down in here before and cooked them without having to take them out of the can by heating them up. So this is light, quick, and easy. And it packs fairly compactly. It rides on the canteen carrier, and so it's pretty handy that way. Staying with the canteen cups, for my European friends, and the Crusader cup. Now the Crusader cup is bigger than the U.S. and it has a certain advantage. Let me show you that right quick. When you look at the size of the bottoms on this, it becomes obvious the Crusader cup's got a lot more surface area. And whenever you're using these for strictly a cooking implement, that bigger surface area right there is a bigger advantage because it means I can brown meats and stuff. Now, for example, one of my favorite camp meals is called camp taters. And what it is, you take some meat like, say, Spam, like a single serving pack or a slice of Spam, you cut it up in cubes, and you put it in the bottom of that, and you put it on low heat, and let it start browning, and you sit there and stir it up until you kind of brown it and bring out a little bit of the oil and a little more flavor, add a little spices, right? And then whenever you get it to where you're happy, now it's warm where I want it, then you'll fill the cup up to about their water and bring that water to a boil. And once that water is boiling, then you dump in rice or instant mashed potatoes with the meat still in there, see, and stir it up. And it's all conglomerated into a one-pot meal. That's called camp taters. And so that surface area makes it easier for me to brown things on the bottom. Also, when you turn it like this, and this broader plane in here allows me to bake with this a little bit easier. So I can sit it in the coals and slide something in here, and in this area I could use this as a reflector oven. So I could bake bread or treats or whatever like that. It can be done, and I'll demonstrate that in the upcoming Canteen Cup cooking series. But it can be done like that, as well as putting it in the coals like this and laying meat across the top up here. While you're doing one thing here, you're doing something else up on here. It doesn't have to be a pot. You can use it several different directions. Now, this does have certain advantages over the U.S. Army Canteen Cup because it has a bigger surface area. Disadvantage, price. The Crusader Cup kits are around $100 or a little bit over. And so what you're getting is this cup, a stove that goes on the bottom for gel fuels, the 58 canteen, and then a separate bowl that they call the cereal bowl that's plastic and got handles that nests on top of the canteen like that. Like that. I don't have the meth burner, as they call it, which is the little stove that you put the gel fuel in, and I don't have the big official cover for this. I do have something that'll all fit in, but I don't have that. These are like around $100, $89 to $100 in our present economy. I haven't priced them in a while, but I know a couple of years ago they were around $100. These are not cheap here in the U.S. And my guys over there in Europe, yeah, this is the one that you commonly see. These can be a very viable one-person cook set. Staying with the canteen thing and getting out of military surplus. Same idea, same basic look, but not surplus. This I pulled off of Amazon, and it is a canteen cup with a pretty good stove. It's open on the top, doesn't lock to it, but I like the fact I can feed sticks into it. It's got a pair of butterfly handles back here for you to be able to drink with. It's got a bail so I can hang it up as a cook pot, and then it's got a lid on it. Again, it's got a fairly good sized surface area right there for browning, etc. I think this was like $30 off of Amazon whenever I got it. And it's titanium. It's very light, so it's lighter than those. So we're doing the same idea. So yes, whenever possible, use military surplus. But in that same setting, don't be afraid to step outside of it if it does the same job at a better price. So for you guys thinking about weight, a titanium one like this, and this came off Amazon, just do a search for Canteen Cup cook kits on Amazon and you'll be amazed at the things that come up. Now, let's speak to that right quick. Really thin aluminum or even a really thin titanium can be a bad thing because it heats so quickly. From go to oh no is a very short amount of time in burning food and things like that. So if your primary function is going to be boil water, heat up stews, something liquidy, these are fantastic. You ain't got a word about it. But if you're going to be, even in the ones I've already pointed out, if you're going to be cooking in it, It's like browning meat or something like that. You have to be very careful with the heat or you'll burn stuff. So low and slow is the way to go. Okay? Now, stepping up a little bit from the Crusader Cup is the Pathfinder set. Now this is the one that's just come out that's got the butterfly handles on it. This set comes, well, it didn't come, but I got it, I should say, with a stove. This stove has a grate on it. So this can be used as a meat cooker. Sit there in the fire and use that as a little grate to lay a piece of meat on, something like that. It can also be used with a Trangia stove or several other ways, or you can build a bed of hot coals off fire, rake it up in piles, sit this on top of it, and then put the cup or etc. on top. Very versatile that way. The cup itself has a lot more surface area than the U.S. Army canteen cup. So again, it's got a better browning. It's good, heavy gauge, roll edge on it. And it's got the, like I said, the big butterfly handles. Now they don't lock like the U.S. Army ones do, but they don't flop either. They're tighter put on there. So that's an advantage. For a one-person cook set, a canteen cup can be a very viable thing. Whenever we start, from this point, when we start diverging, where it's not just you and you've got to cook for a wife and 2 kids, this becomes inadequate because you would have to keep constantly fill it, cook, eat, dump, fill it, cook, eat, time. See, before you get everybody fed, a single one of these ain't going to be enough. You got to scale up. We're going to get to that in a minute. But for the individual person, yeah, this is quick and easy for your portion. At the same time, building a fire or whatever, if you're planning on using a fire for your primary heat source, when you got 8 or 10 of your buddies and all of them's got one of these, you got to build a big long fire. So everybody's got access to heat at the same time. If we're all going to stop and eat and leave at the same time and not drag it out for an hour waiting your turn to get to the heat, then you need to scale up as well. So when we start talking about volume or versatility, we got to scale up. But for our individual needs, an individual canteen cup, at least for me, has taken care of my needs for 40 years. You know, I can feed myself, as you can see from one of my old cups up there. It works very, very well. But depending on what we're doing is the other type of gear we may need to bring out. So, oh, and by the way, having a lid that goes onto the cup is a great advantage because I can put it in the fire and cinders and stuff don't fall into my food readily like this. Also being able to pull it off fire and cover it up and help hold the heat while I'm doing something else like 2-component meals I've got to combine together. See, plus with this lid I can slide it onto the inside, put bread or something on here, slide it into there, and use this as a reflective oven like that because it's got a little bit of an air gap there so the bottom doesn't burn as easy, see, and have something I can pull out, turn around, and put back. Again, we'll deal with this when we get into the Canteen Cup cooking series. But it gives me another little trick I can do with this fairly easily. And no, Blackie, where did you get that cap? Blackie got this cap years ago. They don't make this cap anymore. But SRO does sell a lid for this, but it ain't nearly as heavy as this. Also, like I said, completely out of it. If I'm carrying a grail, I could carry a cup. Now, this little cup, these are cheap. It's probably the cheapest cup up here. Okay, I think I got this at Walmart and it was like $3 or $3 or $4, something like that. And my grail fits on it. This goes to a part of another kit you're going to see in a few minutes. But yes, you could brown stuff into that size of that bottom. You could do it, but that's a small portion. Depending on how picky an eater you are and how much you need at a setting. This sounds good in theory, but doesn't have a lot of volume. Just heat up water to pour into a bag meal, yeah, viable, okay? But this becomes, to me, it's just too small. It's a beverage cup. It's a boil water and pour into a bag cup. Yes, that's okay. But as far as actually cooking in this cup, it starts getting real awkward real quick and a lot of frustration. The canteen cup being wide has advantage over it. Even though the surface area may be close to the regular Army cup with this, it's because the canteen cup is wide, that kidney shape, and so it's easier to get a fork down in there and shift and move things around than it is in this little bitty thing. Okay, we've dealt with like a single canteen cup system, which works perfectly well for an individual to be able to heat up chow, boil, stews, etc. Works just fine. The ability of a lid to put on really it gives you an advantage, because sometimes I want to hydrate something overnight, like dry beans, dry peas, something like that, rice. I could put it in there, put the water to it to soak, put the lid on, and hang it up on the ridge line under my tarp and let it soak overnight to speed up the cooking process tomorrow, make it much faster to cook it, less fuel, etc. But what if I need a little more volume? Well, that's where you come into Bushpots. And it's simply a round pot that gets taller, bigger, whatever, because it's mostly a stew pot, water pot, etc., immersion heating pot. Now this is probably going to be the oldest Bushpot I got. And this is, believe it or not, heavy gauge stainless steel. This was originally a corn boiler from Crazy Crow, and was used in Living History whenever I did Rendezvous years ago. If you look right there, you'll see that mark. And then right there, there was originally a big handle on it. And if you go look on, I think they still got these on their site. But these were made out of heavy stainless steel to kind of cheat for the Living History guys, it's Civil War guys, and etc. But it's called a corn boiler. And it had a handle on it. I cut the handle on it to make it easier to go into a pack. But this thing is seriously not that heavy, but you'd probably stop at 22. It's so thick, right? I use this for 20 plus years in Living History. This was enough to feed me. Now that's not enough to feed the average adult male, I'll tell you that right now. But I'm a light eater at any given meal, so this was perfectly fine. I have boiled stews in this, I have cooked chili in this, I've made spaghetti in this, I've made all kinds of stuff. And whenever we go into the bush pot cooking, we're going to do canteen cup cooking, and then we're going to do bush pot cooking. And then finally into the bigger stuff later on, like Dutch oven. In the coming cooking series, we'll discuss that. But this is like one step from a canteen cup, being able to suspend it over a fire, being able to bury it in the coals with a lid on it and act like a Dutch oven for baking, things like that. It needs to be fairly heavy gauge so it can take it, because the heat would warp something thinner. So that's the reason you need to have something fairly robust for something this size. Okay? Now, with modern stuff, the Stanley pot, a lot of people like and use the Stanley pot. It's got a lid to it. The little plastic tab always melts, so just take it off and put you a key ring on there. And it's a decent size cook pot. The problem with it is access to that bottom through here is way down there, and you got to have a long spoon or something to reach down there. It's kind of flat-ended to be able to stir. So if I wanted to make camp taters in this, like I said, and I wanted to brown some meat down there in that bottom, I got to have something long I can reach down there and stir it around. See? So now you got to have a long utensil to match your thing. Now I turned the handle around. You just squeeze these handles and twist. Blackie is not using his glasses, so we are using the force. There, and the handle come off. And you can hook it down like this to the side if you want to put this into a carrier and then set a grail into it. Like this, a grail will fit it. And I use this as the grail cook pot if I'm going to carry this, okay? Sorry for the noise, guys. But all you got to do, see, it's just a pair of hooks. Is you put one side in, squeeze it in, click, and there you go. And it will work in either position and lock in place. So you got a handle to take it in and out of the fire. This is a pretty good little set, and as you can see, it's got a pretty good bit of use, but I've recently upgraded. This is the new pot, and when we go to cooking series, I'm going to show this, but this is the new one that Stanley just came out. And as you can see, it's bigger in diameter from here up, making it much more surface area on that bottom, where this one tapers down. This one does not, so it's got a bigger surface area. So that's a better choice. The handles are the same way. It's got a better lid on it, and the handle's locked much more secure. And once it goes click, what you want to do is just slide this slider down, and that locks it so they can't compress. So it's a solid handle. The lid now has got drain holes along that top edge right there, and then it's got a little silicone tab on it. Silicone can take up to 500-600 degree heat, so within reason you won't burn it off, and if it does, it's got a nice big steel clip. And then they come with a pair of cups in it, good size insulated mugs. This is a brew kit. For you guys that love coffee or hot tea or hot chocolate, this is a brew kit. Take for you and your wife, you and the kid, whatever. Be able to boil up water real quick and make hot coffee, hot chocolate on a cold day, because these insulated cups will keep your hands from burning or from burning drinking out of it. Now, if you go look at James Bender on Waypoint Survival, he did a video about taking these cups and cutting the top of them in such a way that they separate and become two cups. The inner and the outer are two different wall shells, and he's be able to slide them apart and have two usable thin wall cups, or put them together and leave it as a thick wall. Pretty neat little trick. This would be a distinct improvement, and as you can see, compared to my old bush pot, it's about the same diameter at the top. 3/4 of it is the same diameter, and then it just reduces there, but it's a higher volume. So this is more of a really, for today, you wanting something like what I had, this would be the way to go. It's got markings on it for how much liquid, so you get an idea, 500 milliliters, 2 cups, 3 cups, etc. And then the lid. And the handle can flip over, just like the other one did. Pull that back, squeeze those together, flip it over to hold it. Pretty compact, but I also figured out, remember that cup I just showed you on the grill? From Walmart, get an extra cup on there. So I've got a metal cooking cup. I can have the internal cups. The advantage to this in your set is I don't have to put anything in this. I can fill this with food, like dry food, or home, like we've talked about in the past on my channel, about I'll take mashed potatoes at home, right out of the box, and I'll experiment at home one day when I'm gonna make my lunch. How much measured out do I need to do 1 canteen cup full of mashed potatoes or macaroni or whatever I'm making, see? And then I figure that measurement out and I mark it down. So when I'm gonna come to the field, I can take and put it into separate containers and bring it with me, or wrap it up in foil packets real tight to bring on a camp out if it's not super hot weather or something, and carry it in here. So my food is in here as well as this being the cook pot for that food. So when I get there, I can take it out and then utilize this as a cook set, and then use it as a storage set for transport the same way. Having an extra cup like this, because if I try to make coffee in this and then drink it directly out of this, that thing's hell for hot. And that rim's gonna burn your mouth. Having a separate cup I could pour the coffee into, that's the reason they send those insulated cups with it, or stew or whatever, so I could drink it or eat it straight out of here. Better advantage, and that's just a cheap cup from Walmart that fits the bottom of it. Okay, the Pathfinder, 1 quart. Now I paint mine. I'll be painting my canteen cup and all a little later, but I paint mine. Why does Blackie paint his? I have found that the soot comes off easier off the paint than it does off the stainless steel. So if you look at my old Stanley bush pot, that soot right there, I can just rub a finger on it, it's going to come off on me. No matter how you scrub this sucker in the field, other than soap and water, whoop, it's gonna come off. And so you need to put it in some sort of carrier, a bag or something, to keep from getting all in your pack and getting everything covered in soot, where you've got all of your bags, all of your, it's amazing how it'll just keep migrating. So you got to protect your gear somehow from this soot. If you'll paint it with that black barbecue spray paint, it comes off easier, and so I can wipe off more in the field when I'm done cooking. I can get more of it off of here so that when I store it, less spreading, etc. Now this, and we'll go later, we'll do kits, and we'll talk about kits in a future video. But the 1 quart has big butterfly handles, so this can be used as a big soup mug. It's got a hanging bale, just like my old Bushpot did, so I can hang it up over a fire on a tripod if I want to. I can also use this for baking by putting it on its side and sliding something in like I did with the canteen cup. Again, I'll demonstrate that in a future video. And it's got a lid to protect it from cinders and stuff falling, plus it's got a pour spout right there, so I can use it as a small coffee pot type deal and keep the heat in the winter when I'm trying to keep hot coffee, hot whatever, and just keep some going. It's a distinct advantage, and this has got all kinds of stuff already in it to make a full cook kit. But we'll talk about cook kits in just a minute. This is good for 1 person to 1 quart. When you scaled up, now remember we talked about 15 guys, all of them got a canteen cup, we got to build a big fire. You're trying to feed not just you, but now you got to feed your wife and your kids, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever. So there's more than just you here, and we're going to try to, rather than doing redundancies where everybody's toting a pot and we're trying to slim it down. One of us will tote a bigger pot, and one of us will tote a little more food, and we'll kind of balance out the load, so to speak. That's when you're going to get into the bigger Bushpots. This one is the 2 quart Bushpot. The one, ever since Dave and them brought this out, I've had it, and you can tell it's been used quite a bit. And there's the stove that goes with it, like the one we saw on the Pathfinder canteen stove. Set it up here on top of hot coals to get it up elevated in the heat a little bit. It's got a pair of small butterfly handles right there, so you can pick it up and use it as a coffee pot. But this is a big, substantial area. And with that big surface on the bottom, there's no problem doing frying, deep frying, and stuff like that in this pot on a fire. So that opens up my cooking ability even more. Now I can deep fry fish. I can cook hush puppies. I can fry cornbread. I can fry chicken in it, etc. There's enough capacity there that I can put it like half full of oil and get it to a good rolling boil and deep fry meats, squirrels, whatever, quickly. Again, this is set up to be a kit, and I've got a separate pan. We'll go into this a little later when we're talking about sets. But the lid is a good and generous lid, and that lid can be turned upside down onto a low bed of coals, and you kind of like a little grill and fry it on. So you got a lot of uses. The lid is rebated, so that means that I can put hot coals on this and bake. Now, one of my first videos I did with this was I baked bread. I set it, I got me a fire going, and I got the ground good and hot, and then I raked the fire to the side, and I put just a couple little spacers of rocks, and I set the pot with biscuits into it on top of it, and then I raked the coals like 6 or 8 inches out all the way around, and then I scooped this up full of coals and sat it on top of the lid to bake with this, and baked bread in this pot that way. Rather than putting it sideways in the coals, I let the heat transfer down and the heat all the way around so I wouldn't burn it, and I baked bread in it. So you can, amazing amount of stuff you can do in a bush pot once you figure out. But this size, this 2 quart, is really the size you want whenever you're going to be cooking for more than you. It is very good for you as a overall set to have this when I do want to bake or cook or deep fry or etc. This is about the minimum size for that that's realistic to what we're going to be doing. So you can see that's about, we're getting into bulky stuff now. bigger stuff now. But what am I doing? How much am I doing? Volume and size, the gear has to scale with it. Now, let's talk about sets, okay? Where, Blackie, how about I might need an actual set to do all these little things? That's whenever you order offline different cook sets, got multiple pots, cups, and etc. in it. Okay, cook sets. We all know the Boy Scout mess kit. It's actually a forager's cook set. It is, as you know, a fry pan, a mixing bowl, inside is a stew pot and a cup. This handle turns around and becomes the fry pan. It can be sealed up like this and baked with it. Very versatile, very light. All the Boy Scouts came up using this. Now, this design is very usable, but if you're even considering this, I do not recommend the new modern type that's super thin and light. It burns, it warps, no. Go back and find, and these are readily available on Amazon, the old Boy Scout stuff from like the 50s. It's much heavier than the modern stuff. And you can get the World War II steel ones, which is my favorite actually, and the one that I actually prefer to use. This is the aluminum one, but there is a steel one out there with tin. It's heavy, but it's just about bomb proof. But these heavier aluminum ones from the 1950s, the Miros and stuff like that, you can tell on the handle right here there's writing. That's usually a giveaway that it is one of those era time periods, and it's riveted right there. Take a little bit of time and look at Boy Scout cook set collectors, and you educate yourself a little bit so you know what you're buying off of Amazon. eBay, and you can get a set like this. And these are very viable as a cook set because it has a little stew pot, it has a fry pan, it has a lot of stuff I can do with it. And as a set, it works fairly well. Also, when I'm going out on a given camping trip, patrol, excursion, whatever, you take whatever food you're planning on taking, and then you choose whatever pot or gear is necessary to do that, and don't carry anything else. Don't be carrying a 2-quart Bushpot when a canteen cup will do for what you're planning on doing. You know, if you're coming back home, leave some stuff at home. If you're permanently moving everything, yeah, then you get a wheelbarrow, and a donkey, a mule, a pack drain, 18-wheeler, whatever you got to do to move your stuff to the new location. But your base operation is where you keep the bulk of your gear. You carry what you need. Don't carry a bunch of extra stuff you don't. And a kit like this, you can strip down to the base components for whatever you need. Okay? Now, on eBay, you're going to find a lot of used kits. This is an old Coleman Peak 1 set that I've had for God knows how many years, probably 25 years. Got a little bitty fry pan with folding handles. There's a couple of cups, and this has got this copper-clad, fairly heavy piece of stainless steel. This works good as a bush pot. Nice big wide bottom, again for frying and stuff like that. It's got a good bail on it that locks into position like that for a good hanging pot. Volume, great for one person. We're still too small for multiples. Cook pot, again, I can take food out of there and be able to eat it out of here or drink, etc., and have a little fry pan. Being adaptable, you know, where we're going to be coming out, and I'm going to be out here for a week. In that week, I'm going to be cooking all kinds of stuff. Well, then I'm going to need to make sure I've got the proper tools and equipment to do it. Sorry for the aircraft, guys. Now, in military surplus, there is the M40 Swedish mess kit. Y'all see this. This is also currently being produced by Pathfinder SRO, And I recommend it over getting the surplus kit, because the surplus kits have gone up in price quite a bit, and the SRO kit is the same kit, does the same job, but it's cheaper and more economical for you. Those of you that know what this is, it is a windscreen / stove that I can put this in. You have a fry pot that goes onto the top, and then you have a big pot. Now if you look down in there, you'll notice what Blackie does with his. Come on, baby. Is a U.S. Army canteen cup butterfly handles, drops right into it and fits it perfectly. So you got an extra pot to carry about this. Again, this is set up as a kit, but there's the big main pot. Still got a flat bottom that I can fry some stuff on. Still got a nice big volume of food I can make in that. The fact that the lid will sit on like that and act like a double boiler, so I can seal this up. Let's say I'm boiling hot dogs in here, and I can put beans up here in the top and be heating them both at the same time in one action, and be able to lift it off, no problem. I can also seal it up like that, and then put that in the coals as a Dutch oven and bake bread in it and things like that. By putting something across there to kind of stand it up off the bottom just a little bit, I can bake bread in this. Very, very versatile kit. And so this is one of my big picks. If you guys are looking for a set, look at the M40 from Pathfinder. Very good set. Now, kind of on the expensive side, but you can find them on Amazon, eBay, and you can definitely find them on Amazon. But the Trangia set. This is a big alcohol burner set. We'll go into depth on this a little later on. But it's got a fry pan, it's got 2 internal pots, and then this and 2 other components locked together to become the stove. So it's a stove cook set all together, and might be the way to go. It's fairly light and way to carry and etc. Very good in the field. I can put this onto a fire as well as cooking directly onto a meth burner or a alcohol stove or one of those little bitty Coke can stoves that you can make real easy. The problem is price. Trangias are good gear, and they're not cheap, and they're coming from overseas. So a kit like this can be 80, 90, 100 bucks. Really, it's amazing when you look at it. There is a Chinese ripoff that you can get that I've had and have demonstrated in an earlier video, and it was somewhere in the like the $45 range. But a whole kit like this may be kind of like what you're looking for. Now with this, I can feed a family of 4 fairly easily by using the 2 pots. I can put on one set, get it hot, hand it off to the first 2, and then cook the second set. So we can feed the kids, and then me and Mom can eat type deal. And then occasionally you're going to see this kit in military surplus. It's sometimes called a Ranger kit. Now, it's got an actual official name, but it's a U.S. Army kit. You have a fry pan that these handles, notice there's this funny bend in the handle. You get up there and you squeeze them together and they lock in together, so the handle don't fold. And you got a nice big fry pan right there to fry with. Okay. Inside, you have a nice large cook pot with a bale. That'll feed several guys. Now sometimes this was called a squad set. And then right here on the edge of the rim there's a wire to allow you to use the big pot. So you got 2 big pots. This was issued a U.S. Army SMP is all it says on the very bottom. And as you can see, mine's had a little bit of a rough time. These were used a lot in the Arctic sets so that people could melt snow for troops in Arctic conditions to get water. So that's really needed big volume like this. You can put additional smaller stuff into it, maybe incorporate one of the smaller kits, and then have yourself a full kit capable of cooking for a family. Now, Well, the last thing we're going to cover in this rather long video, and I'm sorry it's dragging on so long, guys, is the fry pan part of it. These are readily available and cheap. The U.S. Army Mess Kit. Now, in my videos, I have demonstrated how you take this and can put, I got a set of silverware in here, how you put it where you put that little loop on that end on that side, and then you put your hand in the middle. This is how you went down the chow line. Hello there. This is how you went down the chow line, and they could slop the food in there at high speed, and you could sit and hold it like this in your hand and eat out of it without having to dump it or fall out of your lap. So one hand it was easy to balance and eat out of. See? You notice I modified my spoon a little bit to make it be able to hook into a pot and not fall in the pot. But back to these are readily available still, and they are a good little fry pan. Well, one of the things I demonstrate in my video on this is how to fix this handle so it don't do that. You cut a stick and you notch it in a certain way so it locks in there, and you press down, click, and it makes this rigid where the pot won't fold. And so therefore you got a fry pan that you can cook when you tip to pour the gravy out of, whatever it don't do that and dump your food everywhere. It's a simple little modification. It's one of the reasons they made this handle round like this with that piece sticking up both to lock it, but also so a stick could lock in there and hold it rigid for cooking. But I digress. That was an earlier video. As a fry pan, this works well. You can boil water in it for meals and stuff like that, dehydrated meals, and I've even showed in videos how to carve a handle to go onto the top so I can hold it as a warming thing, to hold it out there and put it where I could pick it up off the fire and keep the food I've cooked warm. It can be used to bake bread in thin, shallow. Its depth is the problem. So is a fry pan an accessory too. So let's say I've got a 2-quart bush pot and I carry one of these as a small fry pan. That works good. You're going to have to mix and match and make your own kit gear. Also, this set of mine, this is a cool handle skillet, which is steel. And you can see this has been very loved. This is my all-time favorite little skillet to carry in a camp. It's the perfect size. Now, this is exactly the same size as the Boy Scout World War II steel set. It will fit in there identical. That's the shape of it, everything. It's just this is a solid cool handle. But that folding handle of that World War II steel Boy Scout is exactly the same size as that. I have baked bread, fried, cooked, sauteed, stewed, all kinds of stuff in it. This and that little bush pot over there was my rendezvous set back in the day. Now I've taken another one of the old Boy Scout little stew pots, ran a piece of string through the lid, and then I just run the handle of the cool down there like that, and see it all rides together. And I can put other gear into there like I talked about. This is a viable kit for one person as well, because I can fry and I can stew, I can boil water, I can all kinds of things. And then utilizing other cooking methods like on a spit, on a grill, whatever, allows me to cook just about anything with this simple kit with experience. And finally, we come to the end. This is just like the Stanley pot. You move the slider so you can squeeze the handles together and fold it up, lock it in place and do down. This is a Pathfinder skillet. This is a really, really good field skillet because it's got the Pathfinder logo in it. It's got a good thick bottom on it so it holds heat well and it cooks well. It is stainless steel. That has advantages and disadvantages. It's got a nice big broad lid on it. Again, that lid can be used as a cooking device as well. It's light, it's compact, and this handle folds really well and easily, and squeeze and go down to the bottom for a nice compact set. Again, what are we cooking? What are we planning on cooking? If it's going to be, we're going to be catching fish and stuff like that, and I'm cooking for more than me. One of these, there are two sizes of them. I think this is the smaller. Is a good idea to carry as part of your kit, because I can fry fish, I can fry meats, I can stew, I can whatever, simmer along. I can heat chilies, I can, all kinds of stuff. I can use it like a big, shallow, wide bush pot to boil and immerse and saute and make rice and taters and all kinds of stuff. And at the same time, I can deep fry a squirrel or fish or tenderloin out of a deer in here, kind of bake it in the coals. There's all kinds of stuff. With this rebated lip, I can put coals up here on the top to have kind of broil stuff in here. I can flip it upside down like this, take my food and put it in aluminum foil, or take the whole skillet and wrap some aluminum foil around this and bake it in the coals this way to bake breads or stuff in it, something fairly shallow. You know, it is a shallow pan. But you see what I'm saying? Very, very versatile and doesn't weigh much. Okay? And then finally, the last thing, grills. This is a small little grill that will go into the Swedish mesh kit up there to bake bread. One of these, they make a grate like this that's small enough to slide into that Pathfinder bush pot and use as a baking grate. Remember, I showed the lid doing it, but they make a grate like this. And then you got bigger grates. These are great for utilizing between two logs, and therefore I can cook directly on this. A steak, a tenderloin, something like that can be easily cooked on it. Kebabs, whatever. I can also make a slit trench in the summer heat, which is a video I've done in the past, but I'm going to redo again very shortly, where you cut a narrow slit trench, it's only like 3 or 4 inches wide, to build a fire in, and then mound the dirt up on your side as a heat break so that you can cook and not be just roasted by the heat coming off the fire because it's so hot in the summer. You can then take one of these and span across that gap where the fire's coming up here and be able to cook on this and not be cooked to death that yourself from the heat. That's a coming up video. But to recap, your cooking kits for your bug out bag, for your camping set, you need to take into account, am I doing just for me or am I doing for a group? Am I going to be responsible just for my cooking, or am I going to be a component of somebody else's? So you bring the bush pot, you bring the frying pan, you bring the canteen, the coffee pot. See, everybody in the group works together, or am I a one-man show? So, for the individual needs, any of the little bitty bush pots will work. The canteen cook sets will work fine for the solo. When we scale up, and I gotta do maybe 1 or 2 more, that's when the Swedish cook kit, the 1 and 2 quart bush pot, the frying pan, adding in like this starts coming in. And when we start talking about I'm gonna be cooking for a group, that's when the big cook sets come in, the big frying pans come in because of volume. I wish I could tell you that there's this one pot that'll do it all. Well, if I did, I'd be lying. And I don't want to lie to you. The bottom line is you need to carry what you need to cook your food and nothing else. So if I'm going to be doing a dehydrated, add boiling water meal, any canteen cup of bush pot at Barrel will take care of that. No problem. If I'm planning on catching fish and I'm going to need to fry fish, then bush pot and maybe the U.S. Army mess kit. The U.S. Army mess kit was one of my favorite carry-along fish fryers for quite a while. That and that little small cool handle skillet. Whereas the Army kit actually has that elongated, works better for fish because fish are elongated, you know. So I could fry a whole fish at one time in there and make hush puppies and stuff like that. It works. If I'm scaling up, I've got to scale up my gear to fit. So you start with you. I recommend starting out with a canteen cup cook set, and that's what we're going to be doing in the upcoming videos of bushpot canteen cup cooking and bushpot cooking. And then we'll end up that cooking all of that stuff. We'll talk about Dutch ovens and the big family type things, where I'm taking a 10-inch Dutch oven that weighs a ton, but it's the best thing in the universe when you're trying to cook for 6-8 people. You know, that's the way to go, because I can keep that sucker cooking in a fire, dipping food out and restarting for the next run, and keep a camp kitchen going then to feed hungry campers that are doing other activities and I'm playing camp cook. It's going to be big bush pots and it's going to be Dutch ovens then, so I can keep up, and big coffee pots. Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And there'll be more videos in this series coming up soon. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.